There we
Okay.
go. Yes. All right.
Yay, technology.
Yay. Well, let's get started. I am so excited to have Scott Sherman here from Mountain America Credit Union's financial wellness team. Scott believes that anyone can create a stress-free financial life with the right education, tools, and guidance. He shares that message with tens of thousands of people as a personal finance writer, speaker, and coach for 5 years before becoming a financial education manager. He loves to help people find the resources that will make their financial dreams a reality. Scott is a Michigan native who has spent the last 16 years in Utah. He enjoys spending time with his wife and daughter, and over the weekends, he plays drums in the rock cover band Dangerously Close. So we're so excited to have Scott here today, and I'll just turn the time over to you. I'll monitor the chat, and we can answer questions as they come in.
Sounds good. I've got it open up here as well. When I do these presentations, I have three screens going. So you'll see me look over at different places sometimes. I'm trying to monitor chat, make sure that you're seeing what I'm supposed to be showing you, all that good stuff. So today we're going to talk about same bills, different pay, which is our variable income kind of explainer. One of the things that we find is people who have a variable income where it's not always the same paycheck every month, it's really, really hard to budget. And they don't really understand how they can plan around that. And so we like to share some tips and give you an example of how you might be able to organize your finances in order to do that. So the first thing we'll do is we'll cover what is a variable income, why is that a challenge, what are some of the strategies that you can use to manage that better and improve, give you a system, one example of a system that you could use to manage your money, some tips and tricks for success, and then, of course, we usually do a few action items. All right, so what is a variable income? What are we talking about when we're looking at this? Well, it actually can be a lot of different things. So somebody who's got self-employment, right? Maybe their business doesn't do the same volume every month. Somebody who maybe works for tips. If you're a server or if you're in a service industry where you might get tips, that could be an example of a variable income. Somebody whose wages are hourly. So sometimes you maybe have fewer hours or more hours, or you get overtime sometimes, things like that. Those things can be both positive and negative in terms of your monthly income. If you do commissions or you get a sales job where you earn some portion of money from what you sell, or if you get bonuses, perhaps, maybe yearly bonuses or quarterly bonuses, things like that. And then lastly, if you've got side hustles, if you're doing some other things, or maybe you've got another job on the side, you drive for Uber or something like that, then that would be considered a variable income as well. And sometimes it's not just one person who's got that. It could be both people if there's somebody in a relationship, or maybe their partner has this happen and the partner isn't sure how to manage their money either. So sometimes this isn't just one person who's dealing with this. It could be a family dealing with multiple people who have these situations, and that can be really tricky. So I want to explain some of the ways to manage that better. So first off, why is this so difficult? Well, first off, when you've got a variable income, oftentimes it's unpredictable. You may not know that, what next month is going to look like compared to the previous month, or you may not know that there's a slowdown coming or something like that. It's oftentimes an inconsistent income. And when things are really good, usually they are really good, right? And you feel like, oh, I've got all this money. Now I'm finally okay, right? But when things are really bad, when things are slow, it's hard to manage that. And so that inconsistency and followed by that sort of roller coaster up and down cycle can really make it challenging for people to understand how to look at their money. So let's give you some of the strategies that you can use to make this work better. All right, so one of the big things that people who have a variable income really need to do, and this matters for everybody, quite honestly, but it's really, really especially important for people with a variable income, is to look ahead. You need to look 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road and kind of take note and say, okay, what things are coming up that we're going to need to know about in the next few months? What are the things that we need to start saving money for, or that we need to plan to have, a chunk of change for in advance? One of the big ones, especially for people who either are self-employed or kind of sell stuff as a side hustle, or maybe work for these rideshare services or drive, for Uber Eats or something like that. If your taxes aren't being taken out of the income that you're making, that is a really big deal. You want to make sure that you are saving a little bit for your taxes every time. Because what happens a lot of times is people get used to living off the full income, and then it comes time to do their taxes, and then the next year they get this big tax bill, and they haven't prepared for that. They haven't saved for that, and they're used to living off of that money. So you want to make sure that you're saving for taxes. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like in just a few minutes. Another thing you want to be able to do is to understand when there's really extra money. Sometimes those big paychecks are really extra money. And sometimes those big paychecks are really just next month's money today. And so you want to understand, what's the difference? How do I know, when I can do something a little special versus, hey, I really need to still be careful with this, even though it feels like I've got more money. You want to make sure that you're not pre-spending. This is something, especially people who get bonuses or who know that there's an extra check coming in. They get in the habit of saying, okay, well, I'm going to get this thing now, and then I'm going to pay it off when I get the bonus or when I get this other thing. Problem with that is sometimes you don't always get what you were expecting. My favorite example of this, and it's going to be real relevant here coming up soon, is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Has anybody seen National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, where Clark Griswold gets, he's got a money in for a pool, and he's already put the down payment down, and he's waiting for this bonus check to come in. Yeah, thumbs up. Everybody loves this movie, right? It's a fun one, and the holidays are well, if you believe the stores, the holidays have been here for about 3 months now, because I've seen Halloween and Christmas stuff out forever. But yeah, so he's waiting for this check to come through, and he didn't have enough money to cover the pool, and finally it comes through, and he didn't get a bonus. He got a subscription to the Jelly of the Month Club, right? And so that just causes all this stress. You don't want to be Clark Griswold. You don't want to, think you've got enough money for a pool and find out you're actually getting the Jelly of the Month Club. So you don't want to pre-spend these things, whether that's looking at bonuses or saying, oh, well, hey, next month it should be better, right? Things are going to be better next month, and so I can go ahead and spend more money now. We want to start to be really proactive with our spending, our savings, our planning, and not reactive to the things that are happening. When we're proactive, we have a much lower level of stress because we can see further down the road what's happening, right? It's kind of like driving. If you're only looking at what's right in front of you, it's super stressful, right? It's really hard to keep up with what's happening and to react in that moment. But if you look 3 or 4, 5 cars ahead and you start to see the brake lights coming, now you can slow down in anticipation. You're not always trying to push the brakes as soon as you see that car right in front of you is making a stop. So we want to start to be more proactive with our money and less reactive. Okay, so let's explain a system that you could use to manage this differently. So when you have a variable income, a lot of times you need to add a special sort of extras bucket to your money management. So for most people, they'll have savings, they'll have spending, right? It might have a savings account, a checking account. When you have a variable income, we want to add this extra bucket, this extra kind of holding place. We'll explain what that looks like here coming up. So when we're looking at what we have for savings, I don't want you to just think of savings as one big savings account. If you just have one big savings account, the reality is you're doing a lot of mental accounting and you don't really know what that savings is for. And so it's easy to pull money out of there and not really be thinking about, well, how much do I need to have, right? What is that for? Am I taking from something else? And so when you create your savings accounts, I want you to create different savings accounts and I want you to name them. And most financial institutions will allow you to do this now. They're called secondary savings accounts usually. And when you do this, you can create different savings accounts that have a specific name that will help keep you from wanting to pull money from all of these different accounts for something else. It's going to help keep you honest. So, depending on where you bank, hopefully they allow you to do this for free. If you bank with somebody who charges you money to open a secondary savings account, that's probably an indicator you might want to kind of start shopping around. But most places will let you do this, for free. They don't require, a big minimum balance or anything like that to avoid a penalty. That's what you're looking for. So I don't want you to create a bunch of these things and then have a $25 fee every month, right? But when you create these savings accounts, you can track better where your money is going. And as part of the looking ahead, you can create these buckets or fill these buckets to that in a way that makes sense. So first and foremost, like I said, if you're getting money and taxes are not being taken out, then I want you to have a taxes bucket, taxes savings account that you can move that money to right away. Real big one that I know this affects is like realtors, real estate agents. They get their commissions and they don't have taxes taken out of that by the typically by their employer, their agency. They have to file for that themselves, and so it's a big deal when you're talking thousands of dollars to move that money right over to taxes. Don't even look at that in your checking account. Don't even think about that as, oh, I just got this big check, right? You want to move that money over to taxes because you're going to have to pay it sooner than later. We also want to make sure that you've got money for emergencies. Have money set aside for things that are unexpected in terms of the timing, but can kind of be expected in a lot of ways anyway, right? Stuff goes wrong, stuff happens. It's not like you're going to avoid that. You just may not always be able to choose when they happen. So we want to make sure that we've got some money set aside for emergencies. Another big one is vacations. I see a lot of people who don't save for vacations and then go on a vacation, put it all on the credit card, and then they're trying to pay that off for months and months and months on end. And that's one thing that if you can start to look ahead, start to save a little bit, this is going to make a big difference in the way that your financial life kind of moves. It's going to keep your stress down a lot more when you have money set aside for these things. Here's a few other savings buckets. Occasions, which can be holidays. It can be gift giving occasions. So things like Christmas is a big one for a lot of people, right? Start saving money throughout the year so that you have money to pay for the presents by the time Christmas rolls around. Right now, the average American spends, I want to say it's about $1,200 on Christmas, and they put it all on credit card and they don't pay it off until about May. And we don't want you to do that because that means you're paying a lot of extra money in credit card interest in order to do those gifts, right? To have those gifts. But you want to think about other things too. Things like birthdays, anniversaries. If you've got somebody who's coming up on a graduation or a wedding, things like that. You can have a bucket of money, a fund that you just put stuff in so that you can pay for those things along the way, because those can add up and those can really be the difference between having enough that month and maybe not having enough when the time comes. Education, that's another one, whether that's something like tuition, if you have a student who's in a private school or going to college or something like that. It could be extracurriculars like sports. I know a lot of people who have kids in sports, they'll have to pay a certain amount of money for uniforms and stuff right out of the gate, or there might be some travel involved. school supplies, school clothes, all of these things, right? Think about um, what you spend on these things over the course of a year, and start to put a little bit away each month or each time you can to cover these things. Car repairs is another one. So car repairs, sometimes it's unexpected and it could be an emergency, but sometimes you know it's coming, right? You know that, hey, I'm going to have to get some new tires, before winter starts because my tires are looking a little sad, right? Or maybe it's, hey, my battery is been in the car for 5 years, 6 years. At some point, this thing's going to go. And I'm telling you right now, I just had this happen the other day. My wife's car, we were out and it was working just fine, and then it wasn't. Right, we turned it off, tried to start it, the battery wouldn't start, and a trip to AutoZone, and $300 later, we got a new battery. If you don't have money set aside for that, that $300 can be a big deal, right? That can really throw off a lot of things. So set aside money for car repairs. In addition to your emergency fund, you don't want to always rely on that emergency fund to cover every emergency, when you can see that some things are going to happen. Same sort of thing with home repairs. And then the last one I like to mention are pet needs. Pets are one of those things that sometimes we forget what a trip to the vet can cost, or vaccinations, grooming, boarding. If you're going to go on a trip, you can either put that in your vacation fund, or you can put that in your pet fund. But think about that, because pets are one of those things that it gets real expensive real fast sometimes. And you may have other savings buckets, by the way, that are more suited for your life. Go ahead and add whatever you want. And you don't have to have all of these, but I definitely recommend, 5 or 6 for sure can help you keep track of these things a lot better. So then when we got our savings buckets taken care of, now let's look at our spending. And our spending is going to stay in our checking account, right? So this is stuff that we just pay for every month or fairly regularly. It's not stuff that we need to save up for in advance. It's things that we want to have, money in the checking account to pay. So whether it's our rent or our mortgage, utilities, insurance, groceries, count any debt payments you have, at least the minimum debt payments that you have in here. You want your healthcare, childcare, and gasoline costs for sure, right? Those are recurring expenses, that will happen pretty much every month. And so you want to make sure that you're planning for those. And then you have your discretionary expenses. And discretionary expenses happen frequently, but they may happen with a different amount each month, right? And so you might have, like for instance, last month I think I spent, $100 going out to eat, and this month I'm probably going to go a little bit over that, right? Because we're going out, we've gone out more earlier in the month. So I know that that's kind of a flexible outlay of money, but I want to look at what's my average, what's my kind of a good expectation that I might have for what I'm spending on that. Same thing with personal care, haircuts, massages, nails, things like that. Spending money can be a lot of different things, and that's going to depend on what you use your money for. And then shopping, including online shopping, which is one that a lot of times people overlook how much they buy online, right? They think of big things. They don't think of kind of all the little things that add up. And so you want to look at those things too. So those are all of the sort of different recurring and discretionary spending categories that you definitely want to kind of write down, look at. I would suggest go back over the past 3 or 4 months and just sort of see, okay, where do these land, right? What are these numbers at in terms of an average? And if there's something that's really outside the norm, your tendency might be to say, oh, well, that was just a one-time thing, right? But we have a lot of one-time things. So don't just dismiss that as one-time thing. it might be something that you say, okay, I'm going to need to have a little bit more set aside because these one-time things will happen 2 or 3 times a year, right? They might be different, but that's what's going to happen. All right, so now that we understand what all of these different expenses might be, what we want to do when we have a variable income is sort of create a regular paycheck for ourselves out of what we know we have and what we know we need to spend. So the idea here is not to live off of the paycheck that you get or the amount of money that you have coming in every month. It's to start to give yourself an artificial paycheck that's consistent, that you can consistently live off of. And then we're going to let the fluctuation of how much money comes in each month smooth out when we talk about that extras bucket. Okay. So let me show you how this system might work. So what we're going to do first is we need to figure out, using all of the numbers that we looked at earlier, right? How much our rent costs and things like that. We're going to look at all of these different numbers and we're going to try to figure out what is called our minimum monthly income. So the first thing that we do is add up those total monthly fixed costs, right? So how much is that rent? How much do you spend, on gasoline? How much are your utilities on average? Things like that. And then we want to add up the average of our discretionary expenses. Now remember, discretionary expenses might change from month to month. So you want to look at a pretty good representation of time and say, okay, on average, how much do I spend going out to eat? How much do I spend on entertainment, right? Maybe if you're like me, maybe you like to go to concerts. One month you buy concert tickets for 3 shows and the next month there's nothing new coming, so you don't have to buy it, right? You want to average out those expenses. And then we're going to take the total of our infrequent but predictable expenses, and we're going to turn those into what it would be if they were a monthly expense. So for instance, you're going to have to do car registration once a year, right? You know it's going to happen. It's on the back of your license plate. It's only going to happen once, but it's going to be like $120. And so if we were to take that, we would say, okay, I need $10 a month set aside to cover that $120. There's a bunch of other things that are going to be just like that, right? So add up those things like vacations, education expenses, things like that, add them all together, divide by 12, and that would say, hey, if these were all monthly bills, like a lot of my other things, this is how much it would cost me. And then if there's additional savings or retirement, maybe you want to save for an IRA or something like that, there's additional things like that, go ahead and add those in as well. So this is how we're going to find our minimum monthly income. And let me show you an example of a server. This is Kelly. Kelly is a server in a restaurant. She makes most of her money in tips. And then she'll also drive for Lyft on occasion to make some extra cash. So she doesn't do it all the time, but sometimes she wants some extra money. She lives with a roommate, so she's splitting expenses. Her monthly fixed costs are $1,850. She has her variable costs, right? Her going out to eat, her entertainment, gets her hair, haircut, stuff like that. She adds that up, and those are $650 on average. And then she goes on a few trips, nothing too crazy, and she wants to take care of a few other things that are infrequent. So she looks at her total cost there, adds it up, divides by 12, and it would be $300 a month if she took care of those as a monthly bill. And then she also saves a little bit for her emergency fund and for retirement. So when she adds all this stuff up, she says, hey, my minimum monthly income is $3,000. So I need $3,000 a month in order to cover all of these expenses as if they were recurring, regular expenses. So this is the paycheck that she wants to give herself. It's $3,000. She wants to create a $3,000 paycheck for herself on the regular. but she doesn't always make $3,000. Sometimes she makes more, sometimes she makes less. So how does she do that? Well, remember when we were talking about our savings and our spending and we had that extras bucket? That's where the magic happens for her. So she's got two different savings accounts. One is called buffer and one is called bonus. So what she does is she's going to save money into these two different accounts, and she's going to know whether she actually has enough extra money to do some cool things. So what she's going to do is look back over her last 12 months of income, and she's going to find the month that she made the least amount of money. What we want to do is find out what was your worst month, right? What was your most kind of stressful month financially in the past year? And we're going to set that as the floor. That's our baseline. We're going to say, yeah, this is probably, I'm not going to make less than this. We're going to subtract that number from that minimum monthly income. So what she says is, hey, I need $3,000, right? But there were some months where I made less than that. What's the gap? What's the difference? So once you find that difference, then you multiply it by 2. That's going to give you where you want your buffer account to sit. So the idea is if you have 2 of your worst months in a row, right? 2 slowest months where you didn't make as much money, you're going to have a savings account that's going to help cover that so that you can still continue to pay yourself that regular paycheck. So anytime that you earn more money than that minimum monthly income, you're going to stash the extra money in that buffer account. You're not going to run out and spend it. You're not going to get excited and say, oh, great, I have all this extra money, because maybe next month you won't, right? Maybe next month you're going to be hurting. So anytime you make more than that paycheck that you said you're going to pay yourself, you just stash the extra into your buffer account. So for instance, remember Kelly's minimum monthly income was $3,000. So let's say her worst month, the slowest month she had, she made $1,800. So her total difference, her slowest month is about $1,200, right? So she's going to take that, she's going to multiply it by 2, so that if she has 2 of her slowest months in a row, she'll be good. So she wants to have $2,400 in her buffer account. So that's her goal for this account. How might she move that around? Okay, let's say she has a good month, right? Maybe she makes $4,250. She's going to pay herself $3,000, right? She's going to move that money into her checking account, move it to where it needs to go to cover all of her expenses, pay her bills. If she has to save for taxes, she's going to put maybe 20% or so of her money into a tax account, and the rest is going to go into buffer. Now, if she doesn't have to pay taxes, maybe that's covered for her, she'll just move more money into buffer, right? So the whole point is she wants to keep the same regular paycheck of $3,000 coming in regardless. So when her buffer account starts to fill up, then that's great. Once she reaches that target, that $2,400, now she's going to start moving the extra money into her bonus account. That's how she's going to know, do I really have more money that I can do something with? Because remember, it's hard if your income changes all the time to know whether you have a lot of extra money or you just have next month's money today. This is how you know the difference. If you can cover 2 of your worst earning months in a row, and you still have that money sitting there and there's still money left over, yeah, you've got some extra money that you can play with, right? So what we like to do is say, don't run out and spend all that right away, because especially when you're used to seeing that variable income, what you might tend to do is, again, get on that roller coaster, right? Where I've got a lot of money and so I feel like I can spend it all. And then all of a sudden I don't have a lot of money and I feel like I can't spend anything. We want to smooth that out some. And so what we would recommend is every 3 months, go ahead and take a look at that account, that bonus account. And you can use half of that bonus account to increase your wealth. So this is a way that you can start to build an even stronger financial future, even with a variable income where things are changing. Use half of that bonus to build your wealth. That can be paying down debt. So if you've got credit card debt that you're working to pay off, or if you want to accelerate a student loan payment or an auto payment, something like that. Reducing debt is going to increase your wealth. Or you can use it to invest in something, right? Something that's going to make your life better down the road. The other half, spend it however you want, with the caveat that if you go and buy something that requires a new minimum, a new payment every month, you have to add that back in to your expenses, right? So it's one of those things where, great, you wanted to go get a new car because you had some extra money and you figured, well, I have a down payment. Now you have to go and add the new car payment to your total thing, because that's going to change your numbers, right? So reevaluate your budget and your income annually and kind of adjust everything. You just go through this. By the way, we are trying to work on a worksheet, because I know that a lot of people are like, okay, I'd love to do this with my own numbers. We're trying to work on a fillable worksheet that you'll be able to do this, and we'll share that as soon as we have it ready. But doing this way allows you to start to plan ahead, right? You're not going to get sidetracked with weird expenses that come up. You're going to plan for those things like holidays or travel that you know are going to come. You know you're going to want to spend money, and it's hard to recognize when you've got that money there. But with this system, when you start to segregate your accounts out so that you know what that money is for, it really helps with your planning ahead. I'll give you a few tips and tricks for success here. And then if anybody has any questions you want to start throwing in the chat, feel free to do that, and we'll get to those in just a couple minutes. So one of the big things that you can do is you go through this, and this, whether you have a variable income or not, is a good idea, but look for ways that you can cut your monthly costs, right? What are the things that you can do? One of the biggest ways that we have found is if you haven't gotten quoted for auto insurance in the past, say 12 months or 24 months, so 1 to 2 years, there's a good chance that you could probably find a carrier that's offering better rates for you. It's one of those things where just because you've been with a carrier for a long time doesn't mean you're getting a loyalty discount. Sometimes you're just paying more for the same coverage. And so you want to make sure that you're checking on that every 12 months to 24 months. We recently talked to some people that we told this to, and one of them saved $200 a month, and one of them saved $400 a month on their auto insurance alone. So those can be huge, huge savings. And it usually only takes a phone call, or you can go and fill something out online and find that out. Cell phone plans are another one. There's a lot of really good quality, low cost carriers. So if you've been locked into a phone plan where you're paying, $100, $125, $150 a month, you might be able to look and save by moving to a plan that's more like $30 a month or $40 a month. Mortgage refinancing, for a lot of people, that has kind of dried up because of where rates are. But you might want to look at some options for loan consolidation, and you might be able to use equity in your home to do that. So if you have credit card debt, or you've got some other higher interest debt that you want to look at consolidating, you might be able to consolidate that into a home equity line of credit. Or you might be able to even take credit card debt, and if you've got an auto loan, or you've got a vehicle that's paid off that has some value, you might be able to take out an auto loan to pay off the credit card debt, and then you have a lower interest auto loan. So there's different ways that you can look at your debt payments to reduce the amount that you need to pay every month, in interest for sure, sometimes in payment as well. And then subscriptions, that's another one, sneaks up on people. If you're not careful, you might have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 subscriptions that you signed up for at one point, thought you would use, kind of forgot about them, and every month you're getting $4.99 taken out for cloud storage, or for a music service, or for that thing you were going to use to help track your meals, something like that. So pay attention to those subscriptions, and especially the ones that are annual renewal subscriptions. I know the one that always surprises me, you get Amazon Prime or Amazon Music, and it comes once a year. You kind of forget that you've been using it all along, and you got to pay up sometime. So make sure that you're using those things, or if you're not using them, that you cancel them, cancel the auto renew. If you do a side business, if you make money, selling things online that you're going to report, or not just like, hey, I put something on KSL just to get rid of it, but like you actually have a business where you're selling things, or you're driving for Uber Eats or something like that. Try to keep your business and your personal accounts separate. Have a specific account where the money that you're getting for that side business goes in there, and any expenses that you have come out of there. If you can have a credit card that's separate for your personal and business, that's a good idea too. Because when it comes time to do your taxes, you want to make sure that you're getting credit for all of the deductions that you can get, so that you're not paying more than you have to. And it'll be really easier for you to see, is this business actually making me money, or is it costing me more, right? Sometimes people have a tendency to start something and think, well, I have to pay for it until it starts to make money. But then they get everything so intertwined that they can't pull them apart to see whether the business that they're doing is actually making what they thought it was. Another good thing that you can do is, if you have a bunch of bills that are due in a certain part of the month, and this usually happens at the beginning, where you've got a rent or mortgage. Sometimes people will have their auto loans due around the same time. Credit cards might come due at the same time. So you get these big expenses that are all due at the same time. You can ask if they will shift the due dates to help spread it out. So this can help ease some of the, I have a whole bunch of money that I have to put out at the beginning of the month, and so I feel really poor, and I can't, I feel like I can't go out anywhere and do anything. But then the second half of the month, I don't have a lot of bills. I have all this money, and so I feel like I can run out and spend. And you get this sort of, again, roller coaster cycle, right? Of a lot of money and then no money, and a lot of money and no money. And it's really hard to manage your money well when you're constantly going through that cycle. And then the last tip is to make big decisions on paper first. So this is a really good way to make sure you don't get yourself overextended. If you want to do something, let's say you want to buy a new car, right? Maybe your car is starting to get a little tired. You're not sure you want to keep throwing money in the maintenance. So you say, I'm going to need to get a new car, right? You start looking around. A lot of times what people do is they'll go out, they'll find the car they want, they'll get it, they'll have a payment, and then they'll try to figure out whether they can make the payment. That's not the right way to do it. What you want to do is go and look at, how much is this car going to cost? How much can I put down, right? So what's my loan going to be? Go online, put in a calculator and say, okay, what's an auto loan for a vehicle like this, right? This cost. And then you'll see what the payment would be. And then start to make that payment to yourself in a savings account. And if you can do that for 3 or 4 months in a row, then you can afford to make that payment. But if you can't save the amount of money in a savings account that you would otherwise have to pay out in your loan, you can't afford that loan, right? You have to look at something else. And you want to find that out on paper before you actually have a loan that's due. So that's a really good way if you're looking at, changing locations for your house, right? So if you're like, oh, I want to get a new house. What's the new mortgage going to be? What's the difference between what you're paying now versus that new mortgage? Can you make that payment to yourself before you go and say, I'm going to start making that payment to a bank? And then one thing that we hear a lot with people who have fluctuating income, it can sometimes be hard to qualify for a loan. So if you are looking for a house and your income changes a lot, they like to see 1 to 2 years of verified income that they can reference for how much you can afford, right? So what they want to loan you. Um, Consistent employment is a factor. There are exceptions, but if you're doing a lot of odd jobs and it's not necessarily your own business, that can be tough. There are some options where you can show your bank statements over a certain amount of time to give them an idea that, yes, you've got a stable income, even if it comes from different sources. Um, you want to talk to a loan officer about that sort of thing first, though. Ideally, what you do when you want to get a loan is you go and sit down with a loan officer first, have a conversation with them where they can tell you, hey, here's what I see as maybe going to be a problem for you or something that you're going to need to explain better. And that gives you time to go and get your ducks in a row before you're sort of stressed out like, hey, we want to put an offer in on a house. This is the right house. Or I want to get this car. It's on the lot now. That's not the right time to be finding out that you probably could have done something differently or should have done something differently to qualify for a better rate or qualify for the thing that you're really looking for. Auto loans, same thing, right? So if your income is erratic or it's less than 2 years old, qualifying can be difficult. So have these conversations first because a positive financial history can help a loan officer to be able to say, yeah, we can make this sort of loan even though your income is not consistent. All right, so action items coming out of this. Go ahead and gather your financial information, right? Figure out what it is that your financial life costs you every month so that you can determine what that minimum monthly income is. What is that paycheck that I want to pay myself on the regular so that I can cover all of those expenses? Then go ahead and set up those different savings accounts. Follow that system that we showed you. Cut your expenses where you can and grow your wealth for the future so that that will reduce your stress overall as well. And then, if you wouldn't mind, we do have a quick 2-question survey. Helps us to know whether the information that we're providing is helpful and something that you can use. If you would scan that QR code and just take that, that would be super helpful. And with that, we will open it up for any questions or thoughts that anybody has.
Thank you so much, Scott. That is fabulous information.
You're welcome. Hopefully you
Are
can all
there,
go find a party wherever the party's happening.
yeah, find where the party's at. Are there any questions?
And it could
It's
be about
very
some
thorough.
financial thing too. If you have a question that you're like, oh, it's not about this, we got time. I'm fine. If you got any other questions too. No? All right.
All right, folks. If there aren't any questions, then we can head out early today. Really appreciate you going through all this with us. It's such a wonderful reminder, especially before the holidays roll around.
Oh yeah.